In this Ordinator build guide, I'll show you how to play the Dark and Mysterious Thief in Skyrim. This playstyle is centered on slowly and methodically setting up a perfect shot, or patiently waiting for a perfect moment to relieve a mark of their coin. This build will employ sneak archery as a main combat strategy, but is augmented by explosive guerilla tactics in the Ordinator Sneak tree, as well as magical enemy debuffs in the Pickpocket tree. If you're into a more cerebral style of gameplay, planning traps and springing them at just the right moment, this Thief build might be for you. And I realize that a fair few of you are just here for the edgelord fashion tips, so I got you covered there too. If you enjoy this video, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and maybe check out my other build guides. They're all really good, in my humble opinion. There are only a few key mods I used for this build. They are Ordinator for the perks that will comprise the gameplay backbone for this build, TK Dodge for much needed mobility based defensive options, but also for some interesting offensive tactics, Andromeda for the standing stones, and you'll want the CC Bow of Shadows lingering invisibility fix from Nexus to enable one of the core gameplay combos I used in this build. It's also included in the unofficial Skyrim Creation Club content patch if you'd rather use that. Optionally, I also used Imperius for races and Wintersun for religion, as well as classic classes and Birthsigns reimagined, just to keep the build on track. Most of the gameplay juice here comes from Ordinator though, so feel free to keep it simple. And as always, I've linked all of these in the description below. The race I chose for this build was Argonian, which get starting skill bonuses to sneak, light armor, lockpicking, and pickpocketing, which should get you off to a great start. Passive regen bonuses will help with both stamina and health sustainability, very useful in combat archery situations. And the Caustic Spit ability can also help in forced combat situations with a huge armor reduction for an unfortunate enemy. Khajiit is also a great choice with good starting skills and awesome racial mobility techniques, and you get a bonus muffle effect for added sneakiness. Redguard is another solid choice with strongly augmented stamina regen and attack and critical damage. These are fantastic for the inevitable open combat archery situations you'll be thrown into. Bosmer have great starting skills and some good passives, but the Beast Tongue ability often runs counter to going undetected. At the end of the day though, any race will work if you have a specific concept in mind. For class, we'll be perking into the following skills: archery, light armor, lockpicking, pickpocket, sneak, and speech. And if you run classic classes and Birthsigns reimagined, like I do, I took the Shadow Birthsign, giving me another 10% starting bonus to sneak. This helps a ton to remain undetected early in the game while the sneak skill is still low. I chose the Thief Stone and stuck with it for my whole playthrough. Not only does this progress the thief skills faster, but it also improves sneaking and sneak attacks by an additional 10%. It also gives you a once per day power called Pillage, which increases the loot on a defeated enemy. The Tower Stone can also be fun, as it gives you targeted chests to track down as a sort of mini quest. And the Shadow Stone increases sneak and sneak attacks even more as long as you're near a wall. For the Wintersun religion, I went with Nocturnal. This gives a chance for a pickpocket crime spree upon entering a major city, which is always exciting when it procs. And its devotee power allows you to see through the eyes of the nearest NPC, great for advanced scouting in places you're not allowed to be. For attributes, I put 1 point into health and 4 into stamina for every 5 levels. And once you feel like you have enough stamina to slow time as much as you need through the steady hand perk, you can start pouring more points into health for greater survivability. But our main means of defense as a thief will simply be to remain unseen. Okay, moving on to perks. I usually cap these builds at level 50 as a base for the core gameplay to get you started, but due to the Dragon Horde Pickpocket perk, which lets you buy additional perks for 50,000 gold, and the ease and speed at which the thief makes money, I'm going to add 5 perk points to the mix for this one. There are also a couple of other perks that award the player more perk points in the Game of Fate, and seen this before, making these extra perks even easier to obtain quickly. Sneak will be our primary skill for the Thief build, so let's start there. You'll want to take both ranks of Sneak Mastery for more effective sneaking and less discoverability overall. You'll also want Fog of War for a better chance to remain unseen after initial detection, and Infiltrator for a passive muffle effect while moving. This will open up an enchantment slot on our boots for something else. Right behind you makes sneaking more effective the closer you get to a potential target. This is essential for pickpocketing and reverse pickpocketing, which we'll make heavy use of later on in the gameplay combos section. Behind enemy lines makes sneaking more effective the more enemies are around. This makes weaving through groups of enemies, reverse pickpocketing, and setting up sneak attack combos much easier. Smoke Screen gives you a once per day power that deploys a smoke bomb in a mid-sized radius around the player. Enemies within this radius won't be able to see you while you're sneaking, and also take 50% more sneak damage. This is a key component to another gameplay combo later in the video. And one of the most fun perks in this build, Party Starter deploys an explosive barrel whenever you turn invisible. It explodes for 200% of your sneak skill level when you break invisibility. We'll use this in conjunction with the Bow of Shadows for some fun gameplay combos later in the video. And of course, you'll want to take the Sneak Attack and Problem Solver perks for more sneak shot damage. Since we can't rely on crafting for the huge damage output that other classes get, we'll need all the help we can get, so these are absolutely necessary for making Legendary and Master difficulties not feel too tedious. If and when you have extra perks, Clean Escape is a good one to grab, causing enemies searching for you to give up when standing still for 8 seconds. This works great with the Hidden Serpent enchantment from Summer Mist that halves an enemy's health when leaving combat. Disengage is also a great choice, giving you a once per day power that causes enemies to stop looking for you. This also works great with the Hidden Serpent enchantment. Lastly, while you may be tempted to grab Shadow Warrior here, I'd advise against it for this build. The Party Starter explosion can become unwieldy with frequent invisibility triggers, and the explosion will cause detection anyway, so this perk won't be as effective. Also, we'll be able to trigger invisibility for free at will with the Bow of Shadows anyway, so your perk will be a bit wasted here. Archery will be our secondary skill and our only means of direct damage output, so let's look at that next. As mentioned, with no crafting skill to specialize in, the Thief class is going to be at a severe disadvantage to other classes in terms of top-end raw damage output at higher difficulty levels. So we're going to need all the help we can get in terms of damage, causing us to spend a lot of perks here in the archery tree. You'll want to start with both ranks of archery mastery for more raw damage and more critical damage, which will be really important for this build. Then you'll want to take all of the perks in the left subtree, strengthening your long distance sneak shots greatly. Take all 3 ranks of long shot, which add more damage the farther away you are from your target. Thread the Needle will ignore 50% of the target's armor rating if they are not moving, which will be the case with most of your unsuspecting targets while you sneak around. Ambush Predator increases the damage of your shot by 25% after sitting still for 6 seconds, also easily achievable while sneaking. 3 Crows is a really fun perk that does some extra damage and causes a knockdown after 3 rapid-fire close-range shots. And you'll want to top off this subtree with Perfect Aim, which adds even more damage if your arrow hits the target within 2 seconds of the bow being fully drawn. This adds a bit of finesse to your draws, but I've found that it's not too difficult to land this consistently. It also adds a flat 3 times damage boost for crossbows when your targets have 20% or less remaining health, great for finishing off tough boss enemies. Moving on to the next subtree, Clean Kill adds another 20% damage boost to enemies at full health, which also strengthens sneak shots. Snipe is a fantastic perk that guarantees a critical strike on targets that you haven't shot in the last 10 seconds. It also inflicts 3 times critical damage on top of any other bonuses you might have from perks in this skill tree, the light armor tree, and enchanted equipment, which we'll talk about later. This will be effective for both sneak shots and combat archery when you eventually do get caught. Quickshot makes bows and crossbow reloads much faster, and Hailstorm provides a stacking increase to draw and reload speeds with every shot. These are essential to doing more DPS in open combat archery scenarios. And in the rightmost subtree, 2 ranks of Steady Hand should be sufficient to slow time enough to line up a more accurate shot. In my opinion, the 3rd rank is unnecessary, as the increased time dilation doesn't make aiming all that much easier than rank 2. Hunter's Discipline lets you retrieve more of your used arrows, which is nice since without crafting we rely on buying arrows from vendors to stock our quiver with high quality ammo. But mostly I took it just to unlock trick arrows. This provides the ability to craft some really powerful arrows at the forge, which expand gameplay quite a bit. The Elven Shock Arrows do significant amounts of shock damage, but also silence spellcasters for 10 seconds, making them really effective against dragons. and Orcish Force arrows fling enemies in the air, providing some fantastic crowd control. Click the link above for a video guide all about these arrows if you want to learn more. If you have extra perks to spend beyond the 55 detailed here, you might consider Crippling Shot, which adds a stacking slow effect to each close range shot, keeping enemies at bay. Pinning Shot adds a randomly triggered stagger effect to each shot, another good way to apply some crowd control in tough situations. And finally, Beak and Talon has a disarm effect and knocks down already staggered targets. And now to get into some of the more thiefy perks. Ordinator does a lot of good work to make lockpicking and pickpocketing more engaging. These are gamified a bit, and some may find them to be a bit unimmersive, but in my opinion, the fun added by these mechanics easily outweigh any of that. Let's look at lockpicking first. I took both ranks of lockpicking mastery. If you're really good at the lockpicking minigame, you might be able to make do with one perk, but perk points are easily obtained with this build, and being able to quickly pick a lock is important for some of the mechanics in this tree. So I'd strongly recommend taking both ranks here. Next, you'll grab Game of Fate, which hides 5 special chests randomly in your game world. Each one of these contains an extra 15,000 gold and a perk point. The more new lands mods you have, the more spread out these will be, since you may find them in Arnima, Bruma, or even Valskar, in addition to the vanilla and DLC world spaces. In 200 hours on this save, I only found one of these, but it'll give you a fun persistent side quest in your playthrough to check every single chest you come across, just in case. And being rewarded with a perk point definitely makes this worthwhile and a major event when you do find one. Next, I took Robber's Eye to gamify the lockpicking tree a bit more and to have more fun during a robbery. At a random interval between 12 and 60 in-game hours, when you enter a dwelling you don't own, a locked container will be illuminated and filled with expanded valuable loot. Whenever you load into a new interior space, keep your eye on the top left corner of the screen for a notification that one of these containers is nearby. Gone in 15 seconds expands the loot in these containers even further if you can unlock it within 15 seconds. This makes that second mastery perk rank much more valuable. It also resets the cooldown for this to proc in the next interior area, chaining these more frequently. And Dungeoneer expands this effect from only dwellings to dungeons as well, and the effect lasts 3 times longer. In the interest of being able to open these containers in 15 seconds, I took Wax Key, which I found to be mostly useless, in order to get to Locksmith, which starts the pick closer to the target position when you enter the lockpicking screen. And finally, the Seen This Before perk allows you to auto-pick all locks besides master level ones, making that 15-second timer basically trivial. And after picking 100 locks in this way, it'll award you with 2 more perks to spend as you like. Okay, now on to Pickpocket. You'll want to start with both ranks of Pickpocketing Mastery, increasing your chances of a successful attempt and adding 100 points to your carry capacity. I then took Thief's Eye, which gamifies the pickpocketing mechanic a bit. Whenever entering a major city, that is Solitude, Markarth, Whiterun, Windhelm, or Riften, there's a chance every 12 to 60 in-game hours that a random NPC will be illuminated as a target. This person will have expanded loot to steal based on your pickpocket skill level. Again, just like with Robber's Eye in the lockpicking tree, whenever you load into a major city, make sure to keep your eye glued to the upper left corner of the screen for a notification that this is procced. Then quickly hunt down your mark before time expires. Thief's Luck allows you to prioritize an item type for this expanded loot. I chose jewelry because it's very valuable and very light, and there's a chance for it to be enchanted as well. These can come in handy since the thief has no enchanting talent of their own, or you can sell them for a small fortune. Crime Wave moves the illumination marker to another NPC shortly after exiting the pickpocket menu of your current mark. This allows you to chain this mechanic up to 4 times as long as you don't run out of time. This is a thrilling and lucrative event whenever it procs, so be sure to watch your notifications closely for it. And at the top of this subtree, we have perhaps the very best perk in all of Ordinator. Dragon Horde allows you to buy perks for 50,000 gold whenever you sleep. With Robber's Eye, Thief's Eye, and the speech perks we'll talk about soon, allowing you to fence stolen goods, you'll get to that 50,000 septims really quickly. This gives you basically unlimited new perks, perhaps making the thief the strongest of all classes. Finally, I love the Death's Emperor perk. It gives you a cursed coin that when you reverse pickpocket it into a target's inventory, has them take 200% extra damage and critical damage. This is really strong and a great way to stack the deck against high-level humanoid boss enemies. If and when you have a couple extra perks, I also strongly suggest grabbing Mutiny. It'll give the non-mage thief access to a frenzy-like effect to the person holding the Death's Emperor coin, except that the resulting attack can't be traced back to you. It's a fantastic and super fun mechanic, and I encourage you to try it out. So now that we can buy perks for money, let's move on to the speech tree to make as much of it as possible. Take both ranks of speech mastery to sell your loot for higher prices. This also makes intimidation attempts 4 times more likely to succeed for more non-violent ways to achieve objectives. Kinship is pretty useless for an Argonian in this game since there are only 2 vendors of that race, that I know of anyway, and you're much more likely to be selling to them than buying anything from them. But it unlocks the Salesman perk, which allows you to sell any item to any vendor. This helps a ton to unload your loot after a long dungeon haul. Investor allows you to spend 500 gold at a vendor to increase their own gold stores permanently by 500 gold. This pays for itself typically after 1 stop at a vendor and keeps the gold flowing toward that next perk point with Dragon Horde. Fence allows you to sell stolen items to any vendor. This is a no-brainer for a thief. And Trade Prince adds 1000 gold to the tills of all merchants in the world. Worth a perk point in my opinion in order to keep moving your merchandise quickly and easily. You might be tempted to take the Bribery perk here since it does fit the theme for the thief. But later in the Thief's Guild quest line, you'll get access to bribes in all major holds that are not only cheaper, but also wipe out your bounty as well as keep you out of jail. At that point, this will feel like a wasted perk. Though early on and in minor holds where the guild has no influence, this can be helpful. Lastly, we have the Light Armor skill tree. If all goes to plan, you won't need the defense that armor provides, but there are several forced combat encounters in this game, so eventually you're going to have to ditch the guerrilla tactics and just fight it out. Light armor can help with that, but it also supports the critical strikes provided by the archery skill tree. I took both ranks of Light Armor Mastery and Light Armor Fit for the added armor rating and defense. And that's all I had perks for in a level 50 build. It's not much, but it does help survive 1 or 2 hits on Legendary until you can get a contingency plan worked out. When you do get access to more perks though, I'd strongly suggest Lightning Strike, which gives you 75% more crit damage for 10 seconds after entering combat, synergizing well with the Snipe perk from the archery tree. War Dancer also boosts crit damage by 20%, along with a 20% boost to regular attack damage as well, for as long as you can avoid being hit. There are some other useful perks in this tree that aid in defense and mobility that are worth taking, but these are the most important ones. And I think that does it for perks. Let me know in the comments if I missed any major perk synergies that you might know of. Moving on to gear, since we don't invest any perks in crafting skills, it's best to leverage unique items early on, followed by crafting loops to mix in some custom gear later on when you do get those skills maxed out at 100. In this section, I'll share the gear that I used throughout the playthrough and what I ended up with in the endgame. Early and mid-game, the Thieves Guild armor, Guildmaster armor, Blackguard, and Nightingale sets are all great. With the Zim's Immersive Artifacts mod, the Nightingale armor and bow work really well even in the late game on legendary difficulty, but that one just doesn't fit the thief aesthetic for me. The Thieves Guild armor set gives you better buy and sell prices on the hood, increased carry capacity on the body, improved lockpicking on the hands, and improved pickpocketing on the boots. This is all great early on, but once you get these skills leveled up and perked out, you won't need these enchantments and will get better help from other enchantments. The Shrouded and Ancient Shrouded hood will give you a boost to your archery damage, but the poison resistance on the body, backstab damage on the gauntlets, and muffle on the boots for this set are all less useful. So for me, custom gear was the way to go. With WACCF, the Somerset Shadow armor is lootable and temperable, and it gives that really cool thief aesthetic that Skyrim does so well. The normal Thieves Guild armor looks a little better in my opinion, and with WACCF, it's lootable from thieves' corpses. However, it's not temperable, at least in my version of the mod, so it was a no-go for me. While I didn't invest any perks in crafting skills, I did level them all to 100. However, with Dragon Horde, you'll have no shortage of perks, so if you want to invest them into crafting skills, I'd highly suggest doing so. Instead, I made use of some modded enchantment slots to increase my alchemy and tempering abilities a bit. Immersive Armors allows alchemy enchantments on earrings, eye patches, fur collars, and capes. It also allows you to stack hoods and circlets, both of which allow alchemy enchantments. And the Bandoliers mod adds 2 unenchanted equipable books that can be enchanted with alchemy effects. Overall, this gave me an extra 7 slots to add alchemy enchantments, which helped a lot. I used these boosted potions to fortify smithing and enchanting, as well as to fortify archery damage by quite a bit. Likewise, there were some extra slots where smithing could be enchanted. Earrings, capes, and equipable books can all be enchanted with smithing effects, for a total of 4 extra slots, which also helped a lot. You might consider this cheating, and you wouldn't be wrong. These extra slots do add some power, but with no crafting specialization, the thief will have some major issues with damage output on legendary difficulty. So I was happy to take all the help I could get. The third option would be to forego extra perks and added enchantment slots and just use the honed metal mod instead. This still adds power that the class wouldn't otherwise have, but there is at least a monetary cost to these services to balance it out a bit more. Or you could just play on a lower difficulty level, which is fine, but to me that kind of feels like my build failed. In any case, here's my final armor loadout. I was able to temper the hood for 80 armor and apply a 12% fortify archery enchantment. This hood also allows a circlet to be equipped. I used a barbarian hero circlet with 48 armor and another 12% fortify archery enchantment. I tempered the body piece for 162 armor and placed on it a fortify light armor enchantment for 12%. The boots were tempered for 68 armor and fitted with a recall enchantment, which zips you back to wherever you were 4 seconds ago when you jump with your weapon drawn. I just thought this added some fun seasoning to the combat archery. And the gauntlets were tempered for another 68 armor and fitted with another 12% fortify archery enchantment. All in all, I ended up with 469 armor and plus 36% fortified archery damage. For the ring and amulet slots, I chose enchantments that increased critical strike damage by 30%. Coupled with the guaranteed crits and increased crit damage from the archery and light armor trees, these arrows and bolts were hitting like trucks. Speaking of weapons, I tempered a Daedric bow up to 202 damage with a blinding effect on it, making sneaking more effective against the target for 7 seconds. I used this for a more pure stealth archery playstyle when sneaking in close to plant a party starter keg was difficult. And for open combat archery situations, I tempered a Daedric crossbow up to 247 damage with an enchantment that drained armor rating by 125, making subsequent shots that much stronger. As an added bonus, if you have honed metal installed or have invested perks into smithing, you can convert this into an enhanced crossbow which ignores 50% of your target's armor. Pretty strong stuff. But mostly I use the Bow of Shadows. On its own it does 106 damage, which isn't bad with the sneak attack modifiers, but you also get the benefit of the explosive party starter keg, which hits for an extra 200 damage and a guaranteed knockdown. Not to mention the fastest attack speed of any ranged weapon in the game. Still, if you can temper this bow with either honed metal or extra perks, it's very much worth doing so. I also think it bears reiterating at this point that you can definitely do better with all of these numbers by investing some points into smithing, enchanting, and alchemy, or by leveraging honed metal, but I was able to achieve these values without them, and combat felt pretty good, even if the bosses felt a teensy bit spongy. I should also make a special mention of the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal creation included in the full Anniversary Edition upgrade of the game. It's a cool, unique piece with some fun mechanics. It has a Detect Life enchantment, allowing you to see targets through walls. It also fortifies sneak and carry weight, but it causes guards to attack you on sight. Since I was a vampire, I had access to Predator Vision, both through that mod and Sacrosanct, so I didn't need the Detect Life effect. And carry weight and sneak are more than taken care of with perks, so ultimately, while a fun piece to roleplay with and do some light side robbery in town, it's not particularly necessary. As mentioned, I chose to become a vampire with this build, mostly for the boost to sneak and attack damage, but also because with the Sacrosanct mod, we get access to cool new powers and abilities that help spice up the gameplay, as well as add some top-end power. With Sacrosanct, vampires get the powers Vampire's Seduction and Vampire's Will, both of which apply a calm effect to the target. You also get Blood Cauldron, which fully restores health, magicka, and stamina, and with the Cauldron of Fire rank perk, it doubles your attack damage while having incoming damage for 30 seconds. A great momentum changer for nasty boss fights. It does cause Wassail status, which shrinks and drains these attributes, but you can get Dance with the Beast rank ability, which also doubles attack damage and halves incoming damage while affected by Wassail. Sounds like a win-win to me. When thirsty, Blood Cauldron becomes Blood Revel, which increases attack damage by 25%, but activates Wassail, which again comes with its own bonuses. Nightwalk provides a cool and fun way to both scout ahead and teleport while avoiding fall damage. This becomes Obfuscate when thirsty, which grants you 60 seconds of unbreakable invisibility, though you'll have an exploding keg to deal with when that time is up. Vampire's Command adds new dialogue to unoccupied NPCs, providing commands for them to perform. This becomes Flaywind when thirsty, which absorbs health and applies a fear effect to targets for 30 seconds. The King Among Kine rank ability lets you keep all abilities gained while thirsty, permanently giving you access to all of these for the rest of the game, though the 24-hour cooldowns do still apply. Other useful rank abilities include Wicked Wind for a teleport ability, Night of the Wolf, which allows you to sneak feed on non-sleeping victims, and Eyes of the Predator, which gives you a detect life ability if you don't have Predator Vision installed. There are many other interesting things that Sacrosanct brings to the table, but I'll save that for another video. These are the main aspects for this build at least. Other powers I made use of are the Nightingale Strife ability that absorbs 100 points of health from an enemy once per day, and Caustic Spit, the Argonian ability from Imperious races that reduces enemy armor. As far as shouts, the old standbys of Unrelenting Force for keeping melee enemies at bay and Become Ethereal to get out of trouble are always useful. I also used Marked for Death in combat archery situations to shrink enemy health pools and reduce armor rating. And as far as modded Thunderchild shouts, I used True Shot to increase damage of long distance sneak shots, and Shroud of Snowfall to remain undetected while picking off groups of enemies. Just make sure to use a bow for this, as a crossbow is noisy enough that you'll get detected. And I think that does it for powers and shouts. Did I miss anything? Let me know your favorite shouts and powers to use with a thief or sneak archer in the comments below. Alright, on to roleplay for this build. Being an Argonian lends itself perfectly to being an outcast, and that is precisely how I started this playthrough. Collects many things, Cole for short, was an orphan and on her own for as long as she could remember, but she had always been a survivor. She excelled, even as a hatchling, at remaining unseen, at silently taking fish from a market stall when she was hungry, and even the odd coin purse from a traveling noble. She scratched out a meager living like this, but it was a lonely life that taught her to mistrust others and keep to herself. She wasn't particularly happy, though this didn't bother her. Happiness was not necessary for survival after all, and those who indulged in it were frivolous and naive. Things continued this way until Cole found herself in the Skyrim lake town of Riften. There she caught the eye of Brynjolf, a leader of sorts in the local thieves guild. She was cautiously receptive to his recruitment efforts. His superior skill in her chosen arts, as well as with other people, intrigued her. She knew he had much to teach her. She would also have stable work, cash flow, and most enticingly, a roof over her head and a bed to call her own. The guild had accepted her as one of their own. It wasn't quite what she imagined family life to be, but it was the closest thing to one she'd ever had. Things with the guild weren't all sunshine and roses, but she made it through the trials and tribulations of the faction questline and solidified her place with the outfit. At a certain point, she was doing some tomb raiding outside of Riverwood when she rescued a young Breton woman named Zora Fairchild from a necromancer. Not Cole's craziest adventure, but perhaps one of her most impactful. For whatever reason, Zora was drawn to our stoic heroine and just would not leave her alone. Cole was at first quite annoyed by Zora's playful and cheerful demeanor. She exuded all of the frivolous naivety Cole had always accused happy people of. And yet they became friends. Best friends, in fact. While the guild wasn't what Cole had previously imagined as a family, Zora was definitely what she had always imagined as a sister. Zora introduced Cole to her fun side. She began actually enjoying her adventures instead of merely living to survive. And it didn't hurt that Zora was good in a fight. A thief can always use a strong companion in her corner, and Zora was definitely that. When a job would eventually go sideways and Cole found herself face to face with an angry Mark, she knew Zora had her back. The two even adopted a dog together. Zora had one as a child and would often reminisce the love she had for that pup. When they encountered a stray named Miko, whose doting owner had passed away, Zora was happy to take him along, and Cole was happy that Zora was happy. One day, the group was approached by a recruiter for the Dawn Guard, warning of a vampire menace. Cole wasn't interested, but Zora saw her group as a traveling band of heroes, saving the world one adventure at a time. And this adventure was too grand to pass up. Cole was happy when Zora was happy, and Miko was always just happy. Their first job with the Dawn Guard was to scout a vampire den at Dim Hollow Crypt, but this wasn't an average vampire den to be exterminated like pests. These vampires were well organized, well equipped, and quite powerful. Zora was now an accomplished warrior of some renown, and while renown was the opposite of what Cole wanted, she was now a master archer and had a grasp of guerrilla tactics that few in Nirn had possessed. But even they were overmatched when they were cornered by a vampire Nightmaster. The fight was fierce and chaotic, but Cole and Zora eventually prevailed. Not without the loss of Miko, however, who was taken by the monster's ice magic. The two made it through the crypt alive, but part of them had died and they were never the same. Zora fell into a deep depression and became unresponsive to Cole. They now had the world-saving quest Zora had pined for, yet she no longer had the will to see it through. The work was important enough for Cole to finish on her own, but Cole felt abandoned by her other half and felt like an orphan all over again. This led her to resenting her friend, which bred a seething anger toward her. Cole was also thrown into a bleak state of mind, but instead of being paralyzed by it, she was motivated. Motivated to do things that Zora would definitely disapprove of. She had Serana turn her into a vampire, she joined the Dark Brotherhood, she killed people for money, and she fed on people for power. This was a dark time for Collect's many things indeed. She was never the happy adventurer that she had become with Zora and Miko at her side, but she did regain some of her humanity. During a Dark Brotherhood job, Cole was tasked with killing Nilsine Shattershield, who had recently lost her own sister to a murderer. Her parents were mourning heavily, and Nilsine was barely functional. Cole imagined her parents already mourning the loss of one daughter, soon to be dealt the blow of losing their remaining child. It was the only job Cole had ever refused. Cole softened a bit that day. She quietly forgave Zora and looked in on her from time to time. Careful to remain unseen, she'd leave her friend food and money when she needed it. She'd take on charity jobs now and then, just because it was what Zora would want. She even embraced, albeit begrudgingly, her dragon blood, and became the hero the world needed. The Thief's Tool Bag goes really deep in Ordinator, with lots of fun mechanics to deploy for guerrilla-style gameplay, especially when you consider the effectively infinite perk points the Thief has access to. I'd absolutely love to hear about your combos in the comments section, so don't be shy. But here are my two favorites to get you started. The first is called the Widow's Encore. We start by sneaking up on a tough enemy, or better yet group of enemies, reverse pickpocket the Death's Emperor coin into the strongest enemy's inventory, and draw the Bow of Shadows. This will turn you invisible, which triggers the Party Starter perk, planting an explosive keg at your location amongst your enemies. Use this invisibility to sneak away from them and find a nice vantage point, the farther the better with the Longshot perk. Before firing, sit still for 6 seconds to proc Ambush Predator's 25% damage buff, and then loose your arrow at the enemy with the Death's Emperor coin. For extra oomph, use a Dwarven Fire Trick arrow. If all goes to plan, you'll get your regular sneak attack buff on the arrow strike itself, plus 25% for the sneak attack perk, plus the additional sneak damage boost from Problem Solver, as well as some extra damage from the Dwarven Fire Arrow explosion. This will put another severe dent in the target's health bar, as well as any of his friends that are standing too close. Do be mindful that the bow's invisibility effect only lasts 30 seconds, so you'll need to act fast. Once invisibility is lost, the keg will explode, and you don't want that to happen before you're ready. The Party Starter keg only has a 15-second cooldown, so you can use this all the time and make it a core part of your gameplay loop. The second gameplay combo I used regularly and loved is called Dragonfly Blitz. For this one, I used the Smokescreen Major Power in the middle of a group of enemies or near a boss enemy, which makes you undetectable for 3 minutes and buffs sneak attack damage by a whopping 50%. I then used a crossbow, canceling reload animations with a dodge roll for rapid-fire, high-damage Blitzkrieg. Crossbows typically do more damage than bows, and the enhanced ones can ignore 50% of enemy armor, but they're not silent like bows and are typically not useful for sneak archery builds. However, with the smokescreen power, you will remain undetected regardless of how noisy you are, and you'll continue getting sneak attack bonuses on top of all that damage, along with the super fast attack speed you get from canceling the reload animation with a dodge roll. This is one of the most potent combos I've used in any of my builds, and really fun to pull off. However, smokescreen is a once per day power, so make sure you pick the right time to use it. And that does it for another modded Ordinator build. If you enjoyed it and maybe learned something that you can use in your own builds, consider hitting that free like button and subscribe for more. And if I missed something important, please let me know in the comments below so we can all learn from it. But until next time, take care.